Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Justice was served in the end. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Our first story. Yes, sir. I will always lock your door. This happened last week. I work security through a private company contracted to a large corporation. Security is very strict here. Once 5 p.m. rolls around, it's everyone out and the building is on lockdown. The evening officer, me today, locks up each individual office and room, and the morning shift will come through and unlock everything before the day starts. This relates to the story, trust me. One of the managers comes into my office and tells me that he has several meetings yet today and he will be staying late. I ask if he needs the conference room unlocked and he says, "No, I will be in my office." Okie dokie, boss. Fast forward, when I'm making my rounds and locking the place up, I leave his office unlocked. He's still using it, though not in at the moment. And if I did lock it, I would have to leave my post later to unlock it again to let him in. A booming voice comes over my radio not even 5 minutes later, asking me to come to his office. There, standing at the threshold, is my idiot boss, who I may mention has a habit of messing with officers and really doesn't like us, in several suits. Boss man is yelling nearly in my face about why his door is unlocked and asking what kind of outfit I'm running. He's going on, and I'm starting to think it's just to look powerful in front of his guests. After his rant, I reply, "Copy that. I will now always lock your door." And I walk off. Next hour, I come through. Boss man is in his office with his guests. I walk up to the door, loudly stuck in my key, and lock it. No eye contact. Nothing, just doing my job. I then proceeded to do this for another 4 hours, every meeting, loud key banging, and door locking mid-meeting. Of course he complained, but I recorded my orders to a T in my records for the night. And hey man, I have to provide good service for the client. To those who keep saying I'll be fired, it's not a week. I've been cleared by HR. This guy is not liked around the offices and has a tendency to overreact. Refuse to pay $60 to fix my roof? Okay, I'll close your building site down and cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Characters in this story. My friend, who I'll call Brian. Bullying demolition man, we'll call Keith. Greedy property developer, we'll call Karen. And the insurance assessor. Brian's neighbor is a typical greedy career landlord that left their rental house in disrepair. The poor tenant was living in the cold house, raw sewage leaking onto the lawn, and holes in the house that you could see light coming out of the house. After multiple requests from Brian, Karen refused to get any repairs done. When the state government introduced new laws about ensuring landlords are insulating their rental properties, and instead of doing this to the house, Karen kicked their tenant out and left the house vacant for 5 years. The old house deteriorated so much more during this time, with rats infesting the house and invading other houses nearby. Brian and his wife, with their limited funds, were able to get sufficient lending from the bank and offered to buy the house and do it up themselves to improve the neighborhood or rent it out, as there is a massive shortage of rental properties in our local county. Greedy Karen did not want to sell, nor did she want to spend a cent on the house to remedy the rodent problem. She also did not care about the effect the house was having on aesthetics of the street. It's important to know that Karen and her wealthy family have over 100 rental properties, and due to lax tax laws in this region, they do not pay a cent and can get tax write-offs when their properties deteriorate, then can claim on this as a loss. Long story short, some of them appear to be leeches on our society and are one of the reasons property prices are so high and rent prices are skyrocketing in our area. Her husband is also the chairman of the state's Landlord Association, an association that he often fronts the media for, defending landlords and putting a good media spin on them when there is negative press. Fast forward 5 years, and Brian finds out the house is going to be demolished to make way for some new houses to go in on the small section. That's good news, at least, though Brian and his wife were anxious about how smoothly the demolition would go due to the fact the houses are quite close to each other. This is important for later. Prior to demolition, the company doing it had to get samples from all sides of the house to check for asbestos. Either Karen made it difficult for the company to get down the side bordering Brian's house, or they simply were too lazy, but only samples from the 3 sides, not 4, were taken. Demolition day came around, and Brian was concerned that no safety barriers had been put up to protect his house from falling bricks of the chimney, nor was there anything from stopping dust and debris going all over his new deck and porch area. Later that day, Brian had the pleasure of meeting Keith. Keith is the demolition company manager that's well known around the district for only caring about money and has little regard for people or property. Keith was doing the demolition himself today, simply with a digger. Brian returned home during his break at work to check the progress of the demolition and found the demolition was already complete. After only an hour or so, the demolished house was in a pile. He climbed up on his roof and, to his disbelief, found hundreds of bricks had fallen onto his roof, causing damage, though he was lucky none had fallen through into the house. Brian phoned up demolition man Keith to ask about what went wrong. Keith initially downplayed the damage, despite there being 200 bricks laying on Brian's roof. Even with the damage done, no apology, and the rude attitude of Keith, Brian kept his cool. Since I did a little bit of roofing when I was younger, I can fix the roof if you just give me 4 new sheets of roofing iron and we'll call it even. Don't worry about paying for paint. I can sort that out when I paint the whole roof after the fall. Brian's roof was not in the best of shape, but it was in much worse shape after having bricks dumped on it, leaving massive dents and chipping the paint. This is the moment that a simple decision on Keith's part would screw him and the landlord big time. Not happening, pal. Your roof is effed anyway. I'll give you a sheet of secondhand roofing iron from my yard to repair the damage on the roof, and I can come and hose off the dust off your deck and dog kennel. Cue the revenge. The revenge was not intentionally nuclear, but Brian had a dilemma that his roof was damaged and he needed it repaired. There was rain and snow forecast later in the week, and he shouldn't be out of pocket having to buy new materials to fix his own roof up to a good standard. Brian is normally a calm and relaxed man, but this situation and the way he and his property were treated sparked an anger that I have never seen before. Brian got in contact with his insurance company, and due to the issue involving a roof, a building assessor arrived that day to assess the claim. The assessor would then be able to seek damages from the landlord or demolition company if he found them to be at fault. Brian also reported the demolition company to the local health and safety authorities due to their lack of safety precautions used when doing the demolition. The assessor got on the roof with Brian and was mortified to hear how Keith had acted in such disregard with the damage done to the roof, and his lack of an apology for any wrongdoing got the assessor mad. He then looked more concerned and bent down and picked up some gray fibrous material. Luckily, thanks to COVID, we already have masks on. Brian, this here looks like it's asbestos. I don't know how they got the sign-off to get this house knocked down in this manner. You don't know at the time of being exposed to this stuff, but if you breathe in these fibers, it can cause serious diseases later on in life, including lung cancer. I'll get this sent off to the lab for testing, and we'll be in touch. Fast forward another day, and Brian was contacted by his insurance company. It turns out the side of the house that wasn't tested was clad in asbestos. Not just any bad asbestos, the worst possible type you can get. Insurance will be seeking damages to replace Brian's whole roof, not just the damaged part. The cost of replacement is likely to be around $20,000. This is the cheap part. The demolition site has now been shut down by local authorities, and there needs to be a massive decontamination of the area. This involves having to remove at least 0.5 meter of topsoil on the surrounding properties, test the soil, and remove more if there's asbestos still found. Areas with decks need to potentially have these removed so soil can be evacuated out underneath. The cost for this cleanup will likely be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but who will pay for this is unknown at this stage, whether it's Keith or Karen's insurance or them personally. Time will tell. And our next story, high-end revenge. In the late 80s, I was working tech support at a cash register company in a well-known resort area, so I was well familiar with the etiquette of on-site servicing of higher-end establishments. One day, I got a service ticket for probably the highest high-end resort in the area. If you aren't in the 1%, you aren't getting in. Their bar printer isn't working. So I get out there, it's fairly high up in the hills, great view, but a pig to drive to when you're in a hurry, and the restaurant manager lights into me about how my gear always breaks and how crappy our service is, etc. This is in the lobby in clear view of the diners at their lunch rush. I think he was trying to be a big dog in front of these people who could literally afford to buy islands. So I take about 3 minutes of abuse and get to work. The problem's fairly obvious and easily fixed, and after 10 minutes or so, I get it up and running. The backlog of tickets starts spewing out, and everyone's happy. So I go up to the manager to get him to sign off on the work order, and he bellows out, "Well, did you fix it? What was wrong with it this time?" I hold up a well-chewed cable and in my best stage voice say, "Mice!" His face went from smug/snotty to frosty blank. Without another word, he hustled me off to the kitchen to sign my paperwork. I used his phone to call my office for my next job. Remember, it's the 80s, no cell phones back then. And by the time I got my tools loaded into the truck and start heading down the road, a van for a national brand pest control company is driving up. I found out later from the line cook that one of the guests in earshot at the restaurant was the CEO of the same national brand company. Apparently, he had a malicious sense of humor and wanted to rub the manager's nose a bit too. I thought for sure I'd get flack for that stunt, but I never heard another word, and we kept that contract until the company closed. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.